So like I said, on the regular 5-section LSAT, you've got 2 sections of logical reasoning, 1 games, 1 reading comp, and then the unscored experimental section. On the flex, though, you've only got 3 scored sections, and that's it. So in that case, you've got logical reasoning as 1/3 of the LSAT flex. So it matters a little bit less on the flex, and games and reading comp matter a little bit more. Now, these questions are bite-sized. They're not related to each other typically. So you have 25, 26 questions typically, and question 3 does not relate to question 4. So that's good and bad. If you didn't like question 3, well, you can move on and just go to question 4 and start fresh. Alternatively, with games and reading comp, you're really investing yourself a lot up front. And if you are, then in that case, that could pay off well if you really got what the game or the passage was about. But but if you didn't really get what the game or passage was about, then you've got a problem. Logical reasoning doesn't have that. Logical reasoning does have the clearest general order of difficulty, though, because they're bite-sized. And so question 20 will typically be much harder than question number 5, but maybe 18 is actually harder than 20. But within games, game 1 might be easier than game 4, but the questions within a game are not really difficulty ranked in quite the same way. Again, average amount of time, approximately 130. In reality, maybe more like 125 or 123, meaning 1 minute and 25 seconds. Again, I wouldn't time them strictly, though. I would never time individual logical reasoning questions because, again, some are harder than others. So maybe question 20 will take you 2.5 minutes, and that's fine. Maybe some will even take you 3 minutes. But again, that's okay because you might have gotten one of the easier questions in the first 10 or so in maybe 30 seconds or even 25 seconds, believe it or not, if you just get it through intuition, because the method of reasoning really is that simple. I get questions about pacing a lot. I had a question about pacing submitted in advance, and really, how do you deal with that order of difficulty? I would say if you're aiming for 165 plus or 160 plus reasonably, I would aim to do the first 10 questions in approximately 10, 12 minutes, which is a fast pace, less than 125 or 130. But that builds up a time bank to allow you to solve the tougher questions later in the section and devote more time to them. And you can move on to the next one, Joel. So 2 types of logical reasoning questions. You have some where the stimulus is assumed to be true and the answer choices are under suspicion. So that would be like inference questions. Must be true, most strongly supported, main point. You're not really challenging the stimulus or challenging any sort of perceived gap there, if there is a gap, if it is an argument. Then in the second category there, where the answer choices are assumed true and the stimulus is under suspicion, that's more like strengthen, weaken, evaluate the argument, resolve the paradox. They're asking you which one of the following, if true, would do X to the argument, strengthen it or weaken it. And it's really important to view the question from that proper perspective, which is why drilling the A for accuracy in that laser approach to LSAT prep I mentioned earlier, that's why drilling is so important, because it helps you know which of these 2 that you're dealing with. You go to the next one. So again, that first category, stimulus assumed true, I would fit these question types, necessary assumption, flaw, parallels, pointed issue, and so on, into that first category. You'll notice a lot of these involve articulating something about the stimulus, like flaw questions, method of reasoning, role of the statement. You're not actually doing anything to the argument. All you're doing in these cases is really just describing what's going on. Same for those bottom inference types. You're describing what's happening. You're not actually attacking the argument or strengthening it or doing anything to it. You're simply describing what's going on. Next one, Joel. Thanks. Yeah, so this is a different category where we are doing something to the argument. So strengthen, weaken, we are, of course, closing that gap or further exposing that gap in those cases. So it's really important to say to yourself, no matter how extreme the choices seem, doesn't matter, we're taking them as true and seeing what consequence they would have if true. Next one, Joel. Thanks. Okay, so again, I'm not going to do a deep dive on this, but again, feel free to, of course, screenshot these. I'm describing what you need to be doing in those cases. So in those cases, you're addressing the answer choice in a particular way to make sure that you're articulating what needs to be articulated. Next one. Thanks. And so this one, again, describing what your job is. It's really important to know your job. If you don't know your job, if you don't know the task at hand, you're not going to be able to solve the question appropriately. Too many times students read the stimulus, they're like, I don't really know what this says. Let me go to the choices and see if that helps. Going to the choices is not going to help because the choices only make sense in the context of the stimulus and in the context of the question type. So if you don't know what method of reasoning is, you're not going to get method of reasoning questions right. And reading the choices will only further complicate what you're doing because they're giving you more information that you can't place in the appropriate bucket. So students, again, they too often, like I did, jump into full-length timed exams or individual timed sections without doing the hard work of learning. You're basically getting the theory and concepts down, and then A, for accuracy, drilling questions by type. I know it's really tempting to see what your section result is or what your full-length exam result is, but again, you've got to do the work first in order to get those results. If you're doing diagnostics, your diagnosis is not going to be very good unless you do the hard work first to build your understanding from the beginning before getting into the timed work, in which case you'll really see your scores rise. Next one. Thank you. Okay, so again, more describing your job for these question types. I don't need to go into the details, screenshot it if you like. Next one. Thanks. Again, next. So again, more on resolve the paradox. Your job is, I know that we're a bit behind on time here, so I don't want to belabor all of this, but some of the links I put in the chat, we'll get into this as well. So approach, logical reasoning approach. Joel, could you go back one moment just so that somebody can screenshot that? One more, she's saying one more. All right, sufficient assumptions. So yeah, you're looking to close the gap 100%, leaving no ambiguity at all, which means it doesn't matter how extreme the choice is for this category. Doesn't matter as long as it gets the job done. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.